Hello, everybody. Thank you for pulling into the Palmetto Pitstop. My name is Adam, here without Tony for a second straight week. He's feeling a little under the weather, but don't worry, he'll be back just as soon as he can. I know it's a little upsetting when he's not around for these. I'm just as upset, don't you worry. But for the moment, I'm here to tide you over and recap this weekend at Phoenix. Christopher Bell, 3 in a row. Incredible in this next-gen car with all the parity that this sport has strived for. To get 3 straight wins, he could have easily been 4 straight, starting with the Daytona 500 had he not been involved in that crash late in the race. Christopher Bell, always a big fan of his, just as a driver. He's not, I think we've mentioned it before, not my favorite driver, but definitely a driver I have a lot of respect and a high opinion of. Just all around talented, and you can tell just by looking at these tracks that they've been to: super speedway, road course, short track of Phoenix, and he's just been there at the end, and that's all you have to do in this sport sometimes, is just be there when it matters. This weekend at Phoenix, that was not the case. He was absolutely killing it all race long, and you could argue that there were better drivers in every single race, not at Phoenix. Christopher Bell was the guy to beat all day, and that came true. Even if you just look at the results of each stage, you had at the end of stage 1, Christopher Bell was in 4th. He wins stage 2. He wins the race. So never lower than 4th at any of these positions. We had a few guys who could have had better days, surely wanted better days, who likely should have had better days, but you know how things go in motorsports, one of the most unpredictable sports on the planet. You had Josh Berry, who finally got that unlucky bug off his back, able to get some stage points in every stage, and was able to get a top 5, his first for the Wood Brothers. I believe that's the first time he's been running at the finish. Just been on the receiving end of some bad juju these last few weeks. But Josh Berry, very excited that he is able to do so well. Chris Buescher, his first great showing of the season, he brings it home, top 5. Kyle Larson, again, he was there at the end, similar to Atlanta, but not quite in it for the win. That came down to teammates Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin very upset at himself for not being able to pull it off, but he did mention on his podcast that this is when you can start to judge what kind of season they're having. And I think if this is the tell, then Denny Hamlin's in for a good spot to be a few feet away from stealing a win from a teammate who had dominated all race. Just to round out the top 10, we had an interesting one outside of Christopher Bell, Hamlin, Larson in the top 3, and Josh Berry, as I mentioned, as well as Buescher. But William Byron had a really good day, won a stage. He finished at 6th. Alex Bowman, a quiet, good year so far, just bringing it home, and that's what you need to do sometimes. Taking care of equipment and showing results. You can't ask for much more than that. Alex Bowman brings it home 7th. Kyle Busch now with 3 straight top 10s. He finishes 8th. Zane Smith, his first top 10 in his new car on his new team of the season. That 38 car coming home 9th. And, of course, Chase Elliott, as always, a very quiet top 10, just very consistent. So an interesting but not too surprising top 10 outside of Zane Smith and Josh Berry. Some guys who have new cars for this year. I'm very excited. I have really liked what I've seen out of Josh Berry this year. I know the results aren't showing it, but he has been good, folks. Please believe me. He has been much better. That 21 car, it's basically another Penske car, basically a 4th. And now that Josh Berry's in it, I think he kind of embodies what Wood Brothers is all about. I think he fits the part. And that 21 car, it should be much more competitive this year than it was last year, and that's including Harrison Burton's playoff berth. I am convinced it is not an if but when situation for when Josh Berry's in victory lane, finally notching career win number 1. Excuse me. As for some on the other end of things, Tyler Reddick was running up front all day, likely could have been in contention to win it, but he got a late penalty I think it was the last restart or two, sent him all the way to the back. Power steering issues kept him on pit road for longer than he wanted. He got stage points in both stages. He was second in stage 1, fifth in stage 2, and he ends up bringing it home in 20th. So not the day he wanted. Could have had a win. At the very least, probably could have had a top 5. He just ran a really good race, but nothing to show for it aside from some stage points. Bubba Wallace, he was struggling all day and didn't get any stage points for the first time this season. And just when it looked like he was going to be in position for a random top 10, as he had been in a few races, the last few races of this season, I believe, what was it? It was an expired brake rotor, I believe. The brakes failed on his car, hits the wall, brings it home 29th, unfortunately. So not much luck in the 2311 department. Riley Herbst as well. Every single one of their cars having issues. Riley Herbst actually the last place car, so that streak of 17th place finishes comes to an end. Carson Hocevar, who's been the talk of the town the last few weeks, finishes 36th. Chase Briscoe, not much better. It felt like we were long overdue for a big one at Phoenix. We've had a few in years past. Haven't had one in a while, and that's what sort of happened. And wiped out a lot of good cars. You had Custer, Keselowski, Haley, Briscoe, Hocevar. A lot of guys caught up in that. Spire and 2311, teams from hell this last week. And speaking of being in hell, Ty Gibbs just has been almost non-existent these last few, not even these few weeks, but these last few months, I want to say. I mean, I'm looking at his stats right now, and starting at the Daytona 500, I mean, if you want to include the Clash, he didn't even make it to the Clash. Starting from the 500, it goes 16th, 32nd, 34th, 25th. That 54 car has been a non-factor for Joe Gibbs, and if you really want to go back another year, he's been struggling ever since the playoffs have started. It's really starting to worry that his teammate Christopher Bell has won 3 straight. Denny Hamlin was right there at the end of it on their first ordinary racetrack of the year, and Ty Gibbs is still nowhere to be found. So whatever's going on in the 54 camp, he better get it figured out soon. He better figure it out soon, though. Having that family blood in you might get him a little longer of a leash, but still, you can't be content with the finishes he's had. It just seems like he's just turning laps out there sometimes, just not in competition, not even for a good run. It's just been poor performances. And he already has 2 DNFs on the year. So of the 4 races, 2 of them have been ended early. Not a top 10, not a top 5. So that 54, he's got to figure something out. But on the other end of things, even though it was not probably the race that they wanted, Catherine Legg, the IMSA driver who came and made a start today, the first female driver, I believe, since Danica Patrick ran her last race all those years ago. She and her team said they'd be happy if they just didn't finish last. They finished in 30th, so ahead of 7 other drivers. So good on them. Really glad to see some of these other drivers making their appearances in the sport. I know it's a bit of a contested issue on social media, but I'm all for other series sending their drivers to compete with the guys on these ovals, on these road courses, wherever. And speaking of that, I think we just got some news today that Casey Mears, for those of you who remember Casey Mears, the 2007 Coke 600 winner, is going to be making another start in the Cup Series. I believe his first in about 6 years. He's going to be starting at Martinsville. Very excited. So a little peek behind the curtain here today. When I'm recording this, it's now 5:45 on March 13th. This is actually my dad's birthday. And all those years ago when we just got into NASCAR, the way I chose my favorite driver, I was watching the 2007. At that point, it was the Budweiser shootout, and the only driver I knew was Jeff Gordon. So I thought I would root for him, but he ended up crashing out of the race. And I said, whoever wins this race, that will be my favorite driver. And that driver ended up being Tony Stewart. To this day, Tony Stewart's still my guy. Follow him even in NHRA. Doesn't matter. That's been my guy ever since, and it will be my guy for basically until the end of time. But when my dad, he was also getting into NASCAR at the time, didn't have a driver, he did the same thing. He said, well, I need a guy to root for. I don't know who I'm supposed to root for. And I said, well, this is what I did. How about you do the same thing? Whoever wins today, that's who you pick as your favorite driver. And sure enough, he does it, and we get that unusual top 5 in the 2007 Coke 600 that included Casey Mears, his only career win on the back of Fuel Strategy. Doesn't matter. He still has that trophy, still counts in the record books. And my dad looked at me that day and said, who the is Casey Mears? He ended up being, my father ended up going for Kyle Busch in the following years, and did so for the rest of his life. So, fun little story behind my connection to Casey Mears. So very excited to see Casey back in the Cup Series. Again, another thing where it's, he hasn't been there in 6 years. Some people are wondering if he should be there. I don't care. Put whoever you want behind the wheel. Give me Casey Mears. I'm excited. Very, very eager to see him back on the track. But Phoenix, let's focus on Phoenix before we start getting too far ahead of ourselves. Like I said, it was just a Christopher Bell kind of day. That ending was very exciting. It looked like Denny Hamlin had a shot to steal it from Christopher Bell. He's been talking about it on his podcast, where he hasn't been running that well, or at least not at COTA. He wasn't running that well, and Christopher Bell obviously up there enough to win. It gets frustrating, and I can't imagine how frustrating it was to finish, 2-3 feet in second, maybe a little more. And you can tell that on the radio. He's very upset. But it wasn't because his teammate lost. It was just, he's getting up there in age, and that's no surprise. He's talked about it on his podcast. Been very open, where he could see the end. He's aware that he's not a spring chicken anymore. And you don't really know when this last win is going to come. So if you get those chances, you really have to capitalize on it. Unfortunately, couldn't get it done, but that 11 car, he's just so good, and that team is so good. And those first 3 races, they're not something to judge on. And even then, even if you did, he was still there at the end of the 500. Probably should have been first or second in the 500, depending on who you asked. Sorry about that. I think I just hit my desk. But Denny Hamlin, he's just looking for a win, and I think he's going to come up on it pretty soon. Don't think there's anything to worry about in the 11 department just yet. But speaking of finishes, we had Eric Almirola and Alex Bowman in the Xfinity Series. A little questionable of a move by Eric Almirola, kind of racing Alex Bowman hard for the win. And by racing hard for the win, I mean he kind of dive bombed Alex into the final corner. What the hell was that? He dive bombed Alex Bowman into the corner, kind of drove him all the way up to the wall, doored him, and there was a whole outrage on social media. Should he have done it? Should he have not done it? Is it good? Is it not? Blah, blah, blah. Personally, here to say, and I talked to Tony about this over text, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion that it was kind of dirty, but at the same time, it wasn't anything egregious. Yeah, he probably didn't have to door Bowman and force him up the track, force him into the wall. But at the same time, you're going for the win. It's just side-to-side contact. It'd be different if he, kind of pulled an Austin Dillon, dive bomb him into the turn, slammed him up into the wall, or right hook him into the wall, dumping people for the win. But I think this was a race, or a classic example of Rubbins racing. The old saying as it goes. Eric Almirola, absolutely no hang-ups about the move he made. I think it was nice and clean. Or it wasn't nice and clean. It was physical. Kind of dirty racing, but it wasn't anything egregious. Go crazy with stuff like that. That's exciting stuff. If you're not a fan of either driver, which I'm not, I don't want to say I'm not a fan, because I do respect these guys, obviously, but they're not one of my favorite drivers, so I don't it's not I don't have a dog in the race, you know? So just watching this as a fan, observing, it was an exciting finish, an exciting move, and I think personally that is something where you just let it go. And, you know, if Bowman's back in the Xfinity in the next few races and has the opportunity to move Almirola for a win, I'd say that he has it coming, but it is a boys. I am of the opinion of the boys have at it mentality. And I love that kind of stuff. Don't get egregious like that Richmond debacle last season. But if you're adoring each other, if you're kind of getting physical, get somebody loose, that sort of thing, I'm perfectly okay with it. It's very exciting as a fan. But that's all I'll have to say on that. Xfinity is not what my strong suit is. It is the Cup Series that draws the most attention. But speaking of the Cup Series, we'll take a little look at the point standings. As of now, we got some interesting names up here in the top 16 drivers. Of course, the unsurprising part are the top three, which are William Byron, your Daytona 500 winner, Christopher Bell, the winner of the last three races. Surprising maybe that he is not the points leader, but because William Byron has he has 2 top 5s and 3 top 3s. He has been doing very well. He has a stage win. He's getting those points, and most importantly, he did not crash at the Daytona 500, which is what is holding Christopher Bell back by about 13 points. Tyler Reddick, same thing. That Phoenix race really killed him, that ending, that penalty on pit road, because he's just 22 points back. He likely is, I'd imagine he's second if that penalty doesn't happen. He's able to, come home second, or maybe even win. But those are the only two drivers, Byron and Bell, who are locked into the playoffs at the moment. Nobody else, of course, if you only have 2 winners so far on the season and one guy has 3. Then you have Ryan Blaney. He was also a part of the misfortune at Phoenix. He loses 2 spots, falls down to 4th. Chase Elliott, quietly consistent as always. He's 5th. Alex Bowman in a very, very good season thus far, at least in my opinion. I'm very impressed with what I've seen from Alex Bowman. Another quietly good season thus far. Quietly good performance out of Hendrick thus far. He's up to 6th. Denny Hamlin with a huge jump. His first top 5 of the season. A few feet short of a win. He jumps 10 positions up to 7th. Tied with Kyle Busch, who has 3 straight top 10 finishes, really showing that he's still got it in his older age. Joey Logano up to 9th, up 3 positions. Chris Buescher, again, his first really good run of the season. Kyle Larson, maybe a little lower than where people were expecting at this point of the season. But he usually gets going by Vegas, so I'm not at all concerned for the number 5 team just yet. Bubba Wallace, a really, really unfortunate day. No stage points and a brake failure shoves him down to 12th. He was in 6th entering this race, so losing 6 positions is very, very rough. But he goes into an ordinary track like Vegas next week. I think he can really make it up. John Hunter Nemechek, really excited to see that name in there. I don't know why I have such an attachment to John Hunter Nemechek. Maybe it is just the last name. But he's up to 13th right now. Ricky Stenhouse falls some positions, but still hanging on to 14th. Michael McDowell in the 71. Like I said, Spire had a week from hell where all of their drivers were out of the race with not many laps completed. And then Ross Chastain, should the playoffs cut off today, he would be your last car in. And on the bubble right now, you just have guys like Todd Gilliland, Carson Hocevar, Eric Jones with a very quietly consistent season thus far, Chase Briscoe, who I've kind of expected a little more of out of him at this point, but we did just have our first normal race of the season, so I'll hold off on making a judgment until we get a few races into the regular season. And then Josh Berry in 21st, Shane Van Gisbergen in 22nd. Ty Dillon up in 23rd. So obviously not a guy who's competing for a title right now, but he is outperforming Austin Dillon. He's performing guys like Daniel Suarez, who's been rather unlucky these last few weeks. Noah Gragson, Justin Haley, who I thought we'd see a little more out of in that 7. But It is still a very young season, just 4 races complete thus far, and we are only getting to our first real oval of the year. So we're 5 weeks in now, going into Vegas, and this is the first time we're going to be going to a traditional oval. Of course, you have Daytona Superspeedway, Atlanta Superspeedway, COTA Road Course, Phoenix that has that dog leg, short track, and now Las Vegas, our first real traditional track. And let's talk about Vegas. You have to be a gambling man to win here, and that it's proven that way a few times in the past. I'm not feeling super lucky on the draws this week as I was last week, but I will take credit for the 2 in a row Bell calls where I said he could win COTA, and I said he could win at Phoenix, and he did just that. So why am I going to change anything up? Christopher Bell. It would be the first time since 2007 Jimmy Johnson in the chase that helped him lock up that second straight championship, 4 in a row, the last time it's ever happened. The last time a three-peat has happened, I believe, was Kyle Larson in 2021, and he probably could have had, 6 in a row had he not cut that tire at Pocono. Excuse me. It doesn't matter. History books show it is still the 48 of Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus who have that distinction of being so far the last driver to win 4 straight races. Christopher Bell, you could pick him to win any of the next few races, and I wouldn't argue, but it's hard to bet against him right now. He's red hot. He's won on 3 different types of tracks. If he can win on a 4th, it would rival that Jimmy Johnson run, even though that Jimmy Johnson run was in the playoffs to help secure championship. I think it doesn't really matter. Christopher Bell, you went on 4 different styles of racetrack: super speedway, road course, short track, and then what Vegas is. Yeah, I think you get all the credit in the world for that. You're just one of the best, if not the best, all-around driver, or one of the, if not the best, all-around driver on the circuit right now. A lot of people said he's been under the radar. That narrative has been quelled in the last few weeks. Bell is just always there, it feels like. Just you've heard his name at the end of every race just about, aside from the 500 where he crashed, going for the lead, basically. So he could have easily had his 4 straight wins already, going for 5. Doesn't matter. He would be perfectly content, I'm sure, taking that win number 4 this weekend on Sunday. It's hard to bet against him, but even harder to bet against Christopher Bell is the 5 waking up at some point. He has had that win that second place. No, it was 3rd place, wasn't it? Yes, that 3rd place finish at Atlanta. He finished 3rd this past weekend at Phoenix. He has been there. He has kind of had those good performances if you just ignore COTA. But it's Kyle Larson. He's going to win. He's going to be good. You just expect it. And I would not be surprised if he is, again, holding the trophy this weekend at Vegas. So far picks are Christopher Bell, who has the 2nd most laps led at Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, since the introduction of this new gen car. And he does not yet have a win, so it would be... you could say that he's overdue for his victory at Vegas. And another guy I'd say is overdue for a victory at Vegas is Mr. Ross Chastain. 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 6 top 20s in 6 races. He has an average finish since 2022 of 5.5, getting my numbers from driveraverages.com, of course. 153 laps led. He is just well overdue. That would be my air quote wild card pick of the weekend. I don't want to say he's a wild card pick. I think I've picked him once before. I believe I picked him to win at COTA, or one of the 3 drivers to win at COTA. But I just have so much faith in Ross Chastain. He has looked like his explosive self this last week or two. I'm very excited to have that version of him back. He had that incident at COTA where he kind of dive bombed Chase Elliott and had a target on his back all day. But hey, doesn't matter. I am really here for that version of Ross. Give me him. If not him, then Kyle Larson. Give me Christopher Bell. Those are my three again. Bell, Larson, Chastain. I can never get that last one. But yeah, we go into Sin City, our first oval of the season, the first traditional non-super speedway oval, non-short track, non-dog leg oval. This is when this stuff starts to get serious. You can really tell a lot about your season when you get to these, I don't want to call them cookie cutters, but you get to your more traditional racetracks. And we have this, we have Homestead, we have Martinsville. So a lot of historic and yet at the same time very incredible tracks upcoming. And you might hear me call Christopher Bell for at least the next few. I'm probably going to call him for Homestead. I'll probably call him for Martinsville. It doesn't matter. I might call Christopher Bell the rest of the way. It could be the winning strategy, honestly. But that is what is coming up this weekend. Las Vegas. Very, very happy to be off of these crazy tracks, these two super speedways. As much as I love super speedway racing, and I know some people don't, I am still your old traditional fan. I enjoy Talladega. I enjoy Daytona. I enjoy Atlanta. It is just fun from a fan's perspective. But I have to say, to this point, NASCAR, you have done a very, very, very good job at officiating. I know people were upset about the Atlanta finish. I don't personally hold it against you. Oh, geez, I just slapped the microphone as I said that. I don't hold that against you. It doesn't matter. 4 races, and I have not had to once complain about a call, about officiating, about anything. So thank you very much, NASCAR. It seems like you have been on top of it. Now, if next year you can get rid of the playoffs, you and I can hold hands on the beach like we used to back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and so on. Thank you very much. I know it's another shorter episode, but hey, if we're missing half the team, it's kind of hard to make it not half of your normal length here for the Palmetto pit stop. But it doesn't matter. Thank you so much for you guys tuning in. Of course, please like, subscribe, make sure to leave some comments here. Leave it on the social media that we post in the description down below. We apologize for the lack of coverage for the Ladies First podcast as they went through the SEC tournament, and now we're coming up on March Madness for the ladies. Tony, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, under the weather, not doing too hot. But hopefully by the time the ladies get hot, Tony will also be able to rebound and get into coverage for that. So, again, thank you so much for pulling into the Palmetto pit stop. We go to Vegas this weekend, our first true oval of the year. Bell, Chastain, Larson are my picks. Let's see if I can go 3 weeks straight on my predictions. We will see you next time.